What have you done with your daughter? How old is your daughter now? You have one child, right?
Yes, she's almost 19.
Okay. This would be fascinating. Like, how have you parented her?
Well, I've parented her with a lot of bloodshed, meaning I've messed up and effed up a lot.
You're
So that has,
human.
yeah. But through that, I learn, and I teach others how to mess up less. So I've at least used her as the muse and the scapegoat to help other parents not do it. Because I get it, when I make a mistake, I'm like, shit. And this is why I did it. And now let me teach other people. So I have to have a muse, and she's my muse. But I've tried to do what I teach, at least half of the time, which is to release her to her own life and not take it as an affront or an applause to my life. It's her own life.
Mhm.
And I've constantly given her the baton to make those decisions. You know what you want to eat, check in with your body. You know what you want to wear, check in with your body. And if I do have an opinion, I say it age appropriately. So now she's 19. You can't really have an opinion with a 19-year-old. But if I see her dressing, a bit too risque, instead of saying don't be a slut, which is what I want to say, I'll say instead, I would reconsider, how close to showing your nipples you are. I'll try and tell her in a gentle way, because I want her to make her own decision. And I can't, what I want to do is lock her in a box and keep her safe and protected, but I know I can't. So as parents, we need to release children to their own life wisdom, to their own body wisdom, to their own self wisdom. And it's hard with kids because they don't have much wisdom. So it's like, hello, you have zero wisdom. I see you being a total idiot, moron. What, Dr. Shefali, how do I release her to her wisdom when there's no wisdom? Yeah, but giving your child your wisdom is a surefire way that they won't develop their wisdom. You understand?
It's just the same pattern.
Yeah, so it's really hard though, as I feel for parents, because there's nobody more idiotic than a teenager, really. They're really, really not so smart. And so you have to really have a lot of patience and trust to release them to their own wisdom, hoping that they have it. But I will tell you, out of jest, taking myself out of the funny part of it, is that actually we all do have wisdom. It just takes cultivation. Mm-hmm. So I know as a parent, if I just let her make her mistakes enough, wisdom will come. Where does wisdom come from? It comes from error. It comes from trial and practice and from making mistakes. So releasing children to making their own mistakes is torturous for the parent, because we know what they should do, but allowing them to experience the casualty of their own foolishness is counterintuitively the way to create wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine how hard it is to give them enough rope to hang themselves. And,
yes.
It's part of the growth. My parents let me move to England when I was 16 years old and left high school and lived there on my own without family. And I'm sure that I know that's what helped me grow and become the person that I did, because I had that enough rope. And of course I hung myself a little bit, but I'm curious, like, what happens from a young age? I feel like I go up to a kid and I'm like, you see this little girl and you think she looks adorable and you're like, oh my God, you're so cute. But I'm like, no, I'm like, wow, did you pick your outfit out today? And like starting to ask questions from a different perspective. And these are just my like tiny little ways that I approach children. And I'm like, that was a great question. I'm so glad you asked it, and things that aren't about the superficial. So anyway, the point is like, what have you done with your daughter to, because you can't completely avoid the patterning that you have. Like, you are living your life, and by nature it's transmitting it to her by proximity. So what are the tools that you try and embed in a young child early on that gives them the ability to see what's going on, have accountability, be able to make decisions for themselves, things like that? What can you do at the younger ages?
Yes. So the most powerful thing we can do as parents is take care of our own expectations and fulfill our own cup of fulfillment and happiness, so that we are not sucking our children and the identity of being a parent and using that identity to fulfill ourselves, which is what many parents do. They use their children as proxies, surrogate, buckets to fill their own well-being. Your kid is your kid. They are in their own lane, their own destiny. You are their guide, and that's about it. But people equate parenting as I own you, I control you, and you are here to make me feel comfortable and good about being a parent. And that's the mess up, right? So becoming aware that we have to become whole in ourselves is the best gift you can give your kids. When your kid sees that mom is happy, even when I get a C grade, and mom is happy regardless of whether I never get an A grade, that is so freeing to the kid. When they see that mom is happy when I win the baseball trophy or the hockey tournament, and that's what gives her happiness, now you subconsciously put pressure on the kid that oh shoot, I exist for my mom. Parents need to exist for themselves. Kids need to exist for themselves. So I was aware of that as a mom and really had my own career, my own fulfilling practices, and tried to do both, be there for the kid because kids need parents a lot, but also be there for my own fulfillment. So my joy was not based on the kid. There's this adage in parenting, you're only as happy as your least happy child. And I get that, but that's a bunch of bullshit. You should be happy no matter what. Your kid is unhappy. Why are you unhappy, right? But that's what we propagate subconsciously. We teach parents to be enmeshed and dependent on their children. No, teach kids that you're going to be happy. Of course, it pains you that they're in pain, but pain is a beautiful thing. So the next thing I would say for parents to do is honor feelings. Let feelings be feelings. Let the kid have their own feelings. We try to control our children's feelings. We suppress our children's feelings because they make us uncomfortable. So when you're comfortable with your own self, you allow your kid to be comfortable. And then I would say, especially if you're a mother of a girl, be very careful about your own body image. Be careful about how you're communicating your own life story to your daughter, especially, and also to your son. How are you communicating how women should be treated? How are you communicating how worthy you feel in your essence versus your exterior? And, I remember once my daughter at a party in front of everyone, I was wearing a sleeveless dress, said, "Oh, mom, let me see. Oh, look at your jiggly arms. Show people your jiggly like helicopters," right? And I was like, is this kid a nut job? I'm going to punish her, What the hell is wrong with her? But of course, I laughed at myself because I had done enough work. And I was like, outed. This is what kids will do. They will point out all your flaws because they don't see it as flaws. So I was like, here you go, everybody. And I made everybody show their helicopter arms. And then I told my daughter, so sad you don't have your helicopter arms yet because you can't fly yet. And look at me, I've got plenty, something like that. Yeah. But my instinct was to get upset. My instinct was to say, I don't have helicopter arms. I have muscle. Look at my muscle up here. This is down here. And justify and defend. But, or one day my daughter came and said, oh, mommy, I don't want to get fat or something, or I don't want to something about fat. And I said, I wanted to say to her, my reaction again was like, are you so silly? You're so skinny. I wish I was skinny like you, right? That was my instinct. But because I knew this was coming, and, when you're a mother of a daughter, you have to be aware of these issues. Yeah. I said to her, if you're fat, you're fat. If you're skinny, you're skinny. Today you're fat, tomorrow you're skinny. Love your body no matter what, Maya, something like that, But my instinct again was to adulate skinnydom because culture adulates skinny bodies. So you have to be mindful of these messages, and let me tell you, even though I was mindful, I've really messed up. So it's not like some perfection that I'm trying to convey. I'm just conveying an aspiration and to be careful, but we don't have to be so perfect because no matter what you do, you're going to mess up because it's a lifelong journey of so many moments and no one is perfect, Yeah.
The whole vibe of it smells like codependency. Would that be the right way to describe, especially maybe it's just a generational thing and patterning, but it seems worse in women.
Yeah, it's worse in women because women have been trained that their identity is through the relationship. So That's why mothers enmesh with their children more. And part of it is because we are caregivers, so we're lovely, but our loveliness becomes codependent enmeshment very quickly because we've been trained from an early age.
Can you actually just give a good explanation of codependency? Because I think these are the things too that, we hear it and oh my God, I would have never said I'm codependent. I'm like, I'm a strong woman. I buy my own houses. I do my own things. I make my own money. I'm, all kinds of reasons why I don't feel like I'm not codependent. And then I realized I'm totally codependent. Well, I was much more codependent. And so I think it's a great time to just explain what that is. Because, 50% of people probably have it,
Yeah, so codependency is a specific condition, which is different from interdependency. Okay, so codependency is a psychological term that we throw around, which signifies that your identity is really dependent on the other person's moods, emotions, and energy.
Sure.
So you can't hold on to your own autonomous connection with yourself and allow the other person to have their own connection with yourself, which is a healthy interdependence. But instead, you get deeply affected by the other person's moods, energies, emotions, and thought processes. So there's this entangling that we do. And women tend to do it more, again, because our nature is to care. But then culture has really effed us up in telling us that, oh, caring is a good person. And a good person really cares. So therefore, really caring is managing the other person's moods and emotions. And that's where we go into the other person's lane and we mess it up. Right? So then we become codependent. What that means in layman's terms is we lose ourselves in the relationship. And I tell people all the time, you came lost. You didn't lose yourself. You came lost. And you can only blame the other person so much, because if you stay in a toxic relationship, then it's all on you, right? One time it's on them, 2 times it's on them, 3 months it's on them, 6 years it's on them, but 25 years is on you, right? So that's where you have to take full responsibility for our co-creation.
What are some ways that we can double check if we're being codependent or not? I'm kind of curious about it from a codependent side, which I'm really into attachment theory, and then maybe we'll go into the other side of it where it's on the other end of the spectrum, because and you're the professional, but there's a lot of both of those, right? There's a lot of the codependent anxious, and then there's a lot of the dismissive avoidant kind of disassociative. So like
2 extremes, right? One is avoid personality and one is insecure, anxious personality, right?
Right.
And you want to be either. Right.
And they both source from a very, like, how do you get to each of those attachments? And then if we could go into each attachment and style of relating and patterning, and how, like, just ways we can check in with ourselves as to whether or not we're in one of those. Like, where does it source from? Because how do you become one or the other?
Okay, so it comes from childhood, right? So the anxious, insecure type is temperamental, where they learned to read other people's moods because they were more sensitive. They were able to read. So they began to base their psyche on the other person's energies. The more disorganized, avoidant type personality is more compartmentalized, less enmeshed, and they just deny, and they're more masculine energy. So it could come from temperament, it could come from your own parenting. And I always tell people, don't worry about where it comes from. Look at what it is. It doesn't matter. What is it now? It doesn't matter what you were yesterday. It doesn't matter. But what are you currently? And the person can say something like, well, I'm constantly upset and affected. That's it. So if you're constantly upset and affected, you have to look at why. And the person will say, because he, because she, because they. And it's the same cycle, right? So no, it isn't because of them. It's because of your co-creation. So become aware of how you're setting up the dynamics for you to be upset. Yeah, they're doing them beautifully, but you're doing you beautifully. So I often tell very empathic women who are often in relationships with more narcissistic men, yeah, they are doing their narcissism down pat, but they can only succeed because you're doing your empathic bleeding empath, boundaryless, spineless human down pat, right? You're not able to check in with yourself and stand up for yourself. So the narcissist is more narcissistic. So each creates the monster in the other.